Yeah, that's all good.
All right, so we're live. We're
All right.
live on all the platforms, all my platforms, so Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram also. All right. So I'll let you present yourself
Sure.
because we're recording.
So
So
I was just enjoying the word present. I'm going to present myself. How will I present myself?
yes.
Well, I'm Jack Grinhaus. I've been, I would say, a theater artist for a good part of almost 40 years now. I began at a very young age, between the age of 6 and 8 or so, and it kind of started with a trip to a theater. My mom took me to go see The Mousetrap at the Toronto Truck Theatre in Toronto, obviously, and it became the longest running play in North America at one time. It ran for a little over 27 years. And something about that experience at that age, I just got really excited about intrigue and surprise. The Mousetrap has this mystery, and the guy jumps out at the end. And when he jumped out at the end, the whole audience jumped, and I jumped too. And I was just so moved by actually being shaken and pulled out of myself and seeing everybody else pull out of it. And I really felt like I want to do that, I want to do that. And so from that moment, I kind of decided to become an actor or have a theater or something. And I started building little theaters in my basement as a kid, and I'd invite my parents and give them tickets. I mean, most theater kids have done this kind of thing. And yeah, lots of movies, lots of TV. Thought of maybe one day I'd be somebody that did big movies. And I don't know if I ever wanted to be like a famous movie star, but I wanted to be a movie star. I wanted to be a star of movies and be able to do really exciting things. And like most kids who got into it early, I started to go to camps and workshops and classes at the Y. I took the Second City program when I was young. I think I took it from 14 to 17. I thought I'd be an improv or maybe on Saturday Night Live someday, or at Second City one day. And started to work my way up slowly, through school plays and, school awards like most kids, and touring, children's theater, amateur theater, community theater, whatever I could do. And when I was about 8, I was on a game show called Just Like Mom, and was seen by a casting director who kind of connected me with an agent. And I started a little bit in there, but kept getting drawn back into theater, particularly in high school, and started doing a lot more shows that way. And yeah, just continued. I was interested in craftsmanship from an early age. So I really wanted to learn deeply what the craft of acting was about. And so I'd watch films and people and try to understand behavior. I think I early in my life understood that, displaying that behavior in an authentic way is really what acting should be about. And so, I went to York University, and then went to the US and went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. And while there, trained a little bit and worked a little with Uta Hagen, who I also got a chance to train with and work with again in Toronto when she came. And living in New York was a life experience, of course. When I got back, I started getting into fringe shows and indie shows and auditioning for regional theater and other things, and getting an agent. And, I got a few TV shows here and there, little roles and medium roles and some commercials. And along the way, I started to realize that film and TV in Canada, the opportunities aren't as great. There isn't a huge Canadian film industry, and there isn't a great deal of support, unfortunately, for it. So unless you have a big brand name or a great project that happens to crack through at a time when there's something certain people are looking for, it's hard to make a film in Canada as a Canadian. Of course, American and British and other films will come and shoot here, and there's opportunities to be in those. But I kind of felt like it was a bit of a hamster wheel in the acting thing for a while. And so I got back into theater where I could get into more interesting roles. And then when those slimmed out a bit, I started a theater company of my own with my partner who became my wife, Lauren Brotman. We started Bound to Create Theater. That was a huge turning point because we were able to create our own shows and build them ourselves, produce them ourselves, design them ourselves, talk about important issues that we were interested in, which over time became a pretty decent indie hit company with Bound to Create, nominated for awards and great reviews and responses. And and I started moving more into directing at that point. I got my MFA in directing and acting at York University, which opened my mind up to a lot of exciting things. Started to assist and observe incredible directors like Sarah Stanley and Maurice Panich and Robert Lepage. And being around those people, learning great things, really opened my mind as a director. And I started to create my own pieces. One of the first shows we did was a show called The Complex, which was about Toronto and sort of the pressure around living in Toronto. And the summer we did it was when there were the riots in Toronto. So it kind of all felt very prescient and relevant. And then we started to get into more interesting topics and working with lots of diverse communities. This was 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We premiered Jamaican British playwright Debbie Tucker Green's work to Canada and most North America with Dirty Butterfly, which was an incredible piece we did with Obsidian Theatre in Toronto. We created a piece revolving around the residential school system, a mystery piece called The Citoyen Dumb, a piece by Migwin Fairbrother that I co-created with him, and that premiered at Native Earth Performing Arts. And we started to do constantly plays that we thought spoke to niche but important issues. We were interested in stylization. We were interested in theatricality and a rawness in the work. And when you work in the indie scene for a long time, you do get to build some sandpaper on yourself. You do get sticky and you get tough and you get gritty. And the work becomes really interesting because sometimes you don't have the money to make it. So it becomes so much about making the art the best it can be. As an actor, I felt like I was a paint color on somebody's painting. And as a director, I felt like I was holding the brush. But artistic leadership became interesting to me. I wanted to curate the gallery. And as an artistic director, you can pick all the plays in a season. You can choose the artists that are involved. You can choose the tone that you're going to display to your community to help them reflect on life and be entertained and enliven them and impassion them. And so I started moving into artistic direction and apprenticed at the Grand Theatre in London, Ontario. And then someone gave me a theater, which I thought at the time was nuts, but they did. And it was Theatre Northwest in Prince George, BC, northern BC. So I went from, the 4 million population of Toronto to the 80,000 sort of small city, large town of Prince George, northern British Columbia, and had a theater of my own. At that time, Lauren and I had just had a child, so it was a good job to have. I was able to actually get a steady income, which for the first time in our careers, barely, we didn't have that. There were times where we were sharing Burger King together, not knowing where the next check would come in. And things like education helped out. We were doing a lot of teaching and workshops. I was a technical director. I was a producer. I was a production assistant. I mopped floors. I was a box office manager, a bar manager, a stage manager, an arts educator, arts reviewer. I contributed to the Canadian Theatre Encyclopedia. And so I brought all of these things to being able to be an artistic leader. And I was able to really understand how to put a season together that still asked big questions, but still was very exciting and entertaining and impassioned and theatrical. I like intense. I like dark. In some cases, it's a bit scary, the work, and I love that. And it led me to where I am right now, which is I am the artistic director of Vertigo Theatre in Calgary, which is one of the biggest theaters in the country, and one of the most successful right now. We're sold out for most of our shows. The shows are based around the genre of intrigue. So horror, mystery, thriller, sci-fi, courtroom drama, crime drama, political drama, all kinds of noir pieces, right? And so you can really play. We just finished a Jekyll and Hyde that was really stylized by an incredible Mexican-Canadian director, Javier Villalta. And for me, the pleasure to go into a community and be able to really bring up artists who are just coming around, who you want to give that big opportunity is huge. And so that's where I'm at right now. That's who I am in the smallest nutshell I think I can put together for you. I'm sure you can ask follow-up questions, which will help, but I think that represents so much the kind of work I'm interested in, which is, very visceral, very intense, very raw, very real, but very highly entertaining and theatrical. And I think those things can blend together extremely well. And after being in the business as long as I have been, I feel like I'm in a position now where, I can own my own home and I have a great job and I can take care of my family with benefits and I still get to create great art. And whether I want to act or write or direct as the artistic director, I can do any of those things. And I can collaborate with theaters around the country and share things. And I'm building a play now that's touring again. And it's it is kind of a dream come true, and it took a very, very long time, and a lot of what I would feel with were failures and sufferings along the way. But there was always another rung I could climb up, and I never really got handed anything at any time. I scratched and clawed a lot of my career, but I think that there's a lot of us in this industry that have all come together knowing that we've worked hard that way, and every time one of us has a chance to be in this position, we can now share that with others who we think lack opportunity or fought hard or have the grit to really take it to the next level. And audiences tend to love things that are exciting for them to see. So I think that's how's that? Is that clear?
That's perfect. Your introduction was very clear and perfect. I loved it.
Great.
Sorry, my camera was talking to me because when I do some gestures, she understands stuff. So, but yeah, we were having such a great conversation before we went on live, and I was like, let's just go live now because it's just interesting what we were talking about. Yeah. So I think, how have you been? Because it's been a long time since we've seen each other through camera.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, the last year and a half or so have been absolutely incredible. Really, maybe the best of my whole life potentially. I mean, I can track years in my life that I thought were the best of my life, and this one is, if not the best, one of the best. I feel like it's the first time I'm not thinking too far ahead about what do I need to do next, or how do I do next? There were years, maybe 10 to 15 years, where Lauren and I would get to like October 30th and not know if we'd have money for rent on the 1st. And then on the 31st, somebody would call and say, come in and do this or come in and do that. And it would just, and the amount of times that happened over a 10 to 15 year period where it was last minute. It could have been anything. It could be bartending at a catering event or handing out Smarties at some convention or I did a lot of mascotting. I got in these horrible costumes for a bunch of years too. And then I found other things in my own industry that I was more interested in. We did a lot of side hustle. I was a server for years, just like most actors, but I kind of decided at a certain point, everything I do needs to be in theater now or in film or TV or whatever. Like I didn't want to do anything else. And it was scary to let go of those jobs that were easy, quick money. But I was able to build more relationships and find more fulfillment from being hired as a producer of a show, even though I wanted to be the director or the actor or the writer, and somebody opened a theater in Toronto and asked me to run the technical side. I didn't know much about that, but I could hang lights because I'd been on tour doing lighting before, and I'd done some training in lighting, and I love lighting. I love sound and lighting. You'll notice a lot of my plays have a lot of those elements as a major part of it because I love it. Like I was a box office manager, but it gives me all the skills now to be able to run a company where I know what everyone does. You know what I mean? Like I can talk to my technical director and my front of house manager, my box office person, and my bartender, and know exactly what their experience is like. And so I can actually contribute and help them and make them successful in their work, give them the ability to be successful. And I think
I feel those people make the best directors because you've been in so many people or roles, shoes. You can better understand what's the importance of their job and like how they may feel in certain instances where you can direct them in a better way.
Absolutely, without question.
I think that's amazing.
No, that's a huge part. I really, really, really believe I know how to direct actors because I am an actor and I know exactly what. Part of the reason I became a director is because directors never pushed me. They never really did much with me. They were like, "Oh, you're great. You're doing well. You do your thing. Okay, stand here, do this." But I never felt really challenged or pushed, and I mean in a good way, motivated in a good way by directors I worked with. And that's not a slag on them. They just had a different way of working. But after working with so many actors, and also, as as somebody who was a teacher and on faculty for a number of different post-secondary and workshops, and because I taught at Toronto Film School for many years, and Yeah, mostly directing the other year students, but also moving into theater history and all kinds of interesting areas. The business of acting was one of my favorite classes to teach. And I just think, yeah, I mean, if when you're an artistic director, your job is to put out as many fires as possible. You get into work and you put on the fireman's hat and you start the day, you know, and you try to make sure that communication is open and transparent and everybody is in line with each other, because 99.9% of the time people get into a fight or an argument, it's because of a misunderstanding and a miscommunication. 99.9. That's all I do is solve misunderstandings on a regular basis, right? Sometimes it's me who makes the misunderstanding, so I've got to solve my own problems, right? But it happens. And my job is to inspire my team, inspire the community, both the arts and the audience community, you know, and excite and generate a really exciting place for people to come see live experience. And there's nothing like a live experience, you know, even now with film and TV being shut down with strikes, theater is still alive, you know. When film and TV began, people thought theater was going to die too. They're like, oh, it's done, you know, and it isn't, because after the pandemic, after all of us were stuck on this thing, you know, for years at a time, people want to come out again. They want to go out again, and they want to just be around other people sharing an experience. And so if you can give them something worth the money, which nowadays, because of, you know, the economics of the world, they're being careful with how they're spending it. But if they think it's going to be a good experience, they're going to spend that because they need that for themselves. Culture is important. Art is important.
Yeah. I wish I would be able to like play in theaters. I've always doubted myself to be able to do it. It's just like, it's scary to think that you have to learn the script and like you cannot make any mistakes. That's how I see it. It's like, or if you do, at least still
I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put it like that myself. You know, like I wouldn't say, for me, fear and nerves, the important part of them is that they show that you care, because if you didn't care, you wouldn't feel anything. Right. And I think that's worse. And I know actors who come in and they're just like, whatever, they're just doing the job. It's just for money. They don't care anymore. It's really just a job. You know, that's their thing. They come in, they do their thing, they do it okay, but they don't care, you know, and that's much worse. I think if you're scared every night and you're worried you're not going to make it perfect every night, to me, that's a really good thing, right? It should hopefully eventually drive you into a really great place of focus and adrenaline that you can then use it in the work itself, right? And I would always encourage actors that way. And also, there's no such thing as not making a mistake when you're trying to be present in the moment. You know, I mean, things happen, you know, and sometimes they're for the better, you know, sometimes they're for the better. One thing I think about is when I was in New York, I was in a show that was one of these, you know, very like 19th century, I think it was Charlie's Aunt was the name of the play. And, you know, I had the really tough collar up to here and with the real frou-frou British accent thing. And, and I had a scene with another actor on stage, and we were supposed to be almost big brother, little brother. Like I was very father figure to him, right? And I was trying to teach him how to be a man. It was very, you know, typical 19th century farce kind of comedy, right? Where I was the blustery person who thought I knew everything about everything, and he was the like, yeah, okay, even though, you know, it was ludicrous, right? And there was a scene, we had a conversation, and he had a fountain pen because, of course, he, you know, of the day, fountain pens, right? And he was clicking it. He was clicking it a bunch because that was just a character thing he wanted to do. Click, 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 click. And in the middle of one of the scenes, one of the nights, the pen exploded all over his face, right? Now that wasn't supposed to happen. No. And it just happened. And I just pulled out the, like, you know, the napkin handkerchief that was in my jacket. I licked it, and I started cleaning his face as we finished the scene, right? And I cleaned him up. I just cleaned him up. Yeah. And somebody came up to us after the show and said, you know when I understood your relationship the most, when that ink was on his face and you were cleaning him off, it was like a father teaching a son, right? And me and the guy looked at each other, were like, well, that's exactly what we planned, you know?
You played with it.
I mean, what else could I have done was the only thing I thought. Like, you know, it's not like I could have just kept talking to him in the scene and the pen exploded and we just ignore it. You know,
Yeah.
the audience would have thought it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that's what you call a happy accident. That's a beautiful mistake, and that can only happen if you are leaving yourself vulnerable enough to be present so that those things can happen in the moment. You
Yeah.
know, like it's that's how I would probably talk to you about the fear of doing theater. I mean, I don't know. I haven't been on stage in a little while. I'd have to know. I know that I had a great fear during film and TV when I was working.
Yeah.
That came over me for a number of years. I just went into a place of very, very much like a self-doubting phase for a while,
I
and
think that's where
decided,
I'm at right now.
yeah, and I just needed
Yeah.
to back away. I just need to back away for a little bit and
Yeah.
focus on. I focused on directing, and I started to really love it. And I just kind of called my agent and just said, "Look, I just need to take a little breather.
Yeah.
I'm just not feeling it right now." And you know, I was almost not acting for almost 10 years. And then the pandemic started. I moved back to Toronto after living in BC. I moved back to Toronto with my family. And my agent called me and said, "Look, you are now at the perfect age for men. Like men,
Mhm.
like 40 to 60, like that's where the great, exciting potential roles are really available." And she said,
Yeah.
I know where you're at. She's like, because of the pandemic, you can shoot all your auditions at home. You don't have to go in and stand in front of people. You can just
True.
record them, you know, and that made a big difference for me. You know, Lauren would read, and she's a great actor, so she would read with me all the parts. I'd record them myself, right? I'd be able to edit them and make sure they look good. I didn't feel nervous as much anymore because I didn't feel like I was being judged in the moment, you know?
Yeah.
And I started booking. I started booking.
I think being judged is one of my fear, and like I think the doubt of myself comes from there, the fear of being judged. And like, I mean, when you're an actor, you're being judged in itself.
Well,
Um,
yeah,
so
you have at some point. Can you swear on this, or is this a
yeah,
PG
yeah, yeah.
13?
It's okay. We'll just bleep it out on YouTube.
Yeah, good. All right, bleep it out of YouTube. But you know, I just at some point you have to stop giving a fuck about what
Yeah.
other people think. You just do,
Yeah.
and it takes effort and it takes a long time. I spent a lot of my life trying to make everyone like me. I spent a lot of my life trying to do that.
Yeah.
A lot of my life. And I gave of my life to do so. You know, I
Mhm.
gave to people who didn't deserve it. I gave out of myself more than I could have, and then I would be hurt more profoundly when it didn't
Yeah.
achieve. And then I got to a place where I just wanted everyone to hate me. So I would do like really intense, hateful theater that was like angry and mean, and and then I got
Yeah.
to a place where I just said I don't give a fuck. You know, I
How did you
can't.
come out of that? How did you like what happened to make you feel like, okay, my like I don't care about it anymore. Like I just want to
Um, I mean,
breathe.
age,
Yeah.
life, failures, successes, realities, falsehoods, wisdom.
Yeah.
You know, you get to a point where you start to understand that the world isn't all about you and everything you want, and you know, it doesn't owe you anything, you know,
Yeah.
and doesn't matter what you think you are owed or how hard you think you work. We are in a business that is it's built on opportunity, and that's
I'm
it.
sorry, Jack. I don't know if you can hear my dog eating in the background.
I don't hear any dog in the
Okay,
background.
that's
You must just
good.
be
So
happy with what I'm saying. So, um,
yeah,
but
you go.
we are in a business purely based on opportunity, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's not about talent. It's not about know-how. It's not about anything. It's are you in an opportunistic moment in your life where something can happen for you, you know? And sometimes those happen. I auditioned for a movie called This Boy's Life when I was 16. I had
Okay.
2 callbacks, and the third one was supposed to be in Los Angeles with Robert De Niro. And
Really?
they ended up giving it to an American named Leonardo DiCaprio and started his career, right? So, you know, that could have been me, maybe, you know, maybe back
Imagine.
in the day, maybe back
Yeah.
then, 30 years ago, that might have been me. You know what I mean? And so it's, I think that's those kind of things where that was an opportunity that almost maybe, and I'm sure I've had a lot of those. in every area of where I've been in my career, right? But this is what we were talking about before we went live, where I think you learn to savor the little victories along the way rather than obsess about the big victory you're not getting, you know?
Yeah.
And that to me is key. That's key, is remembering that, you know, you had 2 auditions last year, you had 5 this year. You still didn't get any parts, but you had 5 and not 2, right? And while you feel like I didn't get the part and I suck and all this stuff, well, you had 5 auditions, which means, and let's just say one of those 5 auditions was somebody who called you last year. Oh, that means they like you. That's good, right? That means they think you're talented enough to bring back. So you go, okay, that's good. Now it's just about the right timing for the right role. It's not really, you know, and that's it. That's what it comes down to, is though you have to remember, I think if you can take time, and I did it for a while, but I'm not good at doing it anymore. But if you can, just write down everything you achieve each year and then be able to look at it as a chart, you know, and say in 2015, these things happened, 2016, these things happened, 2017. And if you're moving in the right direction, you'll notice there are incremental movements. You know, they may not be, you know, and sure, something can happen huge and you're suddenly a huge star. Like, sure, that's what I'm talking about, opportunity, you know. Hayden Christensen was a guy from Vancouver and he played Anakin, right? But he wasn't directed.
We were just talking about him the other day.
And he wasn't directed very well, right? And so his performance didn't come off as well as it could have. And he's a better actor probably than his performance gave. So in some ways, the opportunity worked for and against him.
Yeah, right? I've been talking about that a lot, like saying how I think he's a good actor. I just think maybe yes, it's true, it wasn't portrayed in the best way in the movie. Maybe it was because of the directing. But I think he is a good actor because I've appreciated his acting in the movie anyways. Like,
so here's the thing about acting. Here's 2 things about acting. Acting is 5 things. Okay. 4 things. Explore, choose, retain, repeat. That's in essence what acting is. Explore, choose, retain, repeat, right? Every level of how you are as an actor comes from being able to achieve those levels in a certain way. Level 1, explore. Anybody can do that. My mom was on stage. Your mom probably did a play when she was in high school. It's like anybody can get on stage and just say words, you know, and play with them, explore. That's the exploration, right? You just say it the way you think it should sound, right? You should, you raise and lower your voice depending on how emotional you feel, right? And it's all very basic. You move as the way you think you should move in the moment as you feel. But the next level is to choose. And that's something once you start getting a more educated experience, you learn it's okay. You can play around with a lot of things, but at some point it's good to pick something, pick a choice of something. And then you're kind of going, oh, I did this way. And then level 3 is retain. Can you keep what you've chosen? You know, so an amateur actor might have a really great thing happen in a play, but never be able to make that happen again. Right. And that to me is, you know, that's the next level. You got to be able to get that. And then the final one is to repeat. Can you do it over and 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 over again, especially in theater? If you have, you know, 30 shows, 50 shows, 100 shows, can every night not necessarily be exactly the same, but be at the same level and the same connection, right?
Yeah.
And then the other part of acting is it's about translation, right? It's about being able to translate what's inside of you outward in the different mediums available. So, you know, some, like you said, look at you here in this podcast, you're nice and comfortable. You have no problem. Your ability to translate who you are through this medium is very easy. So you're good at this one, but you say, maybe I'm not so good on stage, right? Sometimes you'll see stage actors who can't do film and TV. Sometimes you see film actors who can't do stage, right? I could never do this. Like I could never do a YouTube channel. I don't understand. I can't not be talking to somebody, right? So I think I'm a pretty damn good actor actually, but I I know there are certain types of acting that I'm better at than others. You know, I'm a strong theater actor. I'm pretty good at film and TV. The more I get to do, the better I get. I'm a terrible commercial actor. You know, I can't do that at all. I just don't know how to sell brand. You know, I just don't know how to sell brand. I suck at it. You know, and that's me. I'm not saying I got nothing against people like that, right? I don't think I'd be a very good reality TV star because I wouldn't want to play to the cameras. You know, I don't like the stupidity of it. I don't know if I could be a good news anchor, you know, or host of a TV show. You know what I mean? Like, I think some people have abilities as an actor that they're able to then get to the audience. I think I'm pretty good at interviews. You know, I think I'm pretty good at interviews. I'm comfortable. I can talk. I'm articulate. I'm able to express myself. So interviews, I know I'm okay at. A stage, I know I'm good at. TV, I'm getting better at, right? Stand-up comedy, I tried it when I was younger and I had more confidence in jokes then. Now I would never do it, you know? So I think it's translation, right? And even in theater, there's different types, right? So, you know, you could be a great dramatic actor, but not a great musical actor. In film and TV, there's different genres. Some people, we talked about Dwayne Johnson, right? Like, I don't know if Dwayne Johnson doing a heavy drama would be very believable. He might be able to pass off stuff, but in an action movie or a comedy, you know, he has such huge charisma that alone carries it. Never mind the imposition of his physique, right? And but I mean, I don't
hasn't
know.
He done the movie for children also, Moana?
Yeah, like that. Yeah. I think that's all right. Exactly. That's all good stuff, right? It works for him, but he's still being himself. He's just being kind of the Rock, you know? And so he seems like kind of laid back, cocky, fun guy who's really built, you know? Yeah, it's his thing, right? And good for him. He's, you know, I think he's the highest paid actor in Hollywood, so that's extraordinary. But acting, but like I said, the definition of actor is very different. And some people are not meant to do it despite their dreams, just like I'm not meant to play in the NBA at 5'11", you know? And it's just not, that's just not going to be in the cards for me. You know, it is what it is. I mean, I thought one time I might be a hockey goalie, but I didn't want to get up at 5:30 in the morning and go to the rink. And you know what I mean? Like, there are things in a personality type that drive you to what you should be doing. And not everyone does that. People sometimes just settle for something that's safe. And that's great too, if that helps you take care of your family and get through life, right? But I believe everyone should strive to find what it is they're great at and do that, because that's where you'll really shine and you'll have a great pleasure in life and you'll be able to contribute the most and feel achieved, which is the hardest thing in our business to feel.
How do you deal, like, has your son started to tell you about like his dream? Like, is he like, I want to become like an actor?
Yeah, he wants to be a film director.
Oh, right.
Really? And he's really into things. He looks at editing. He's 10 years old now, but you know, he knows what a Wilhelm scream is. I didn't even know what the heck that was for a long time. You know, that's scream that everybody uses in movies, you know, and
they're born in the generation where everything's on screen, right? So they're easy to learn those stuff.
Yeah, but he's also he's quite gifted in drawing. He loves drawing. So he's now merged the two, where he'll now start to storyboard things, and he'll take a couple films that he likes and put them together to make a story, like he did recently, the movie Jaws, but with Transformers, right?
Really? That's so funny.
Like this character is the woman at the beginning swimming by herself and gets eaten by the shark, and it's like, it's really funny, right? And so he's trying to think about those things, but he comes to all our plays. You know, he goes to the first rehearsal with us. He goes to the Calgary Arts Academy, you know, and so it's in his blood with two parents in the business. I mean, I don't necessarily want him to be an actor. I hope not. That's not the best choice in the world. But, you know, if he wants to be a film director, that's maybe not too bad. But we were kind of hoping maybe architecture.
We always have hope.
Yeah, but he, you know, at 10 years old, who knows, right? Who knows what will be in the end. I just think that it's I'm just glad that he's growing healthily, and that I now can really give him a quality of life that every kid deserves, that he doesn't have to want for anything, and he can eat what he needs to eat, and healthily too, and he can have a dentist and a doctor he can go to, and it's a real, when you become a parent, that becomes so critical to your ability to even be happy on your own, is if you can actually support your family, and so that's a big part of the decision making, of course. But part of it too is circumstance and opportunity, as I mentioned. By the time I realized that Canada didn't have a star system or a really big film industry, and that as a Canadian film person, if you want to be successful, you need to go to the US.
Yeah,
if you want
success,
if you want big, huge success, and you want huge financial return, because you don't hold your place. During the pandemic, I shot a lead in a Lifetime Network movie. It was incredible. I was a lead. I couldn't believe it, right? But as soon as that movie was over, I went back to auditioning for 1 and 2 lines for things, right? It wasn't like suddenly I was the lead anymore. Because you don't hold your place in line, as a good friend of mine once told me, when it comes to an actor in Canada, unless you've gone and made exactly. You have to be okay with that, if that's all you care about. I know lots of people who are willing to be waiters until their late 60s and do a TV show once in a while, or do other jobs on the side, be a yoga teacher and act when they can. They'll do a contract here, contract there, and they're happy, right? I grew up with sort of like John Lennon being my focus, and I wanted that much worldwide domination and attention as a person. I wanted to be known that much. I wanted to contribute at that level. So anything less than world domination, and I was going to not be happy. So I had to find another way to make happy, right?
Yeah, I feel like that's such a thing that everybody that I've talked to, like in the industry, or like student film, and stuff like that. Like they've been talking about how big they want to be, but I think you forget that before you're there, you have to go through some stuff to like build you up to get there.
Yeah,
as much as there's people that just get there without, like, out of luck, out of talent, out of connections. Like there's some people that have to remind themselves that, okay, you always start from the bottom to get to this level. And I think that
I think that even you always come back to the bottom. That's the thing. The thing. No matter what happens, anybody who's famous, they're only super famous for a period of time before they're just famous again, and then they're kind of, in some cases, they're back to just being a normal person. There isn't anybody in history, unless they died young and famous, that didn't feel a decline at some point as much as an incline. And I'll tell you, it's probably much harder. I was friends with somebody who was a very famous Hollywood actor in the 1980s. And, he was an A-list when Tom Cruise was a C-list, and one of the biggest actors in the world. And then by the time he was 17, he'd lost almost all of it, and by the time he was 20, he was back in Toronto, and, 20 to 25, 30, he was back in Toronto, and we were hanging out, and he would say to me, "You have a better chance of making it than I do." And I said, "No way, man. You're a big star already. You could just come back." And he goes, "No, man, I damaged too much and I burned too much. Nobody wants to work with me. You'd be quicker to get famous." He unfortunately died very young as well, because of addictions that got him during his young age, and the difficulty of being in Hollywood in the 80s, where drugs were just passed along to people to stay awake on sets, and he became addicted. And anyway, but I mean, the point being, everybody rises and everyone falls. It just depends on the grades and styles and when, in some ways it's nicer if you become successful as you get older, because you learn how to handle it better. I'm sure fame when you're really young is incredible, because when you're young, everything is felt so intensely. And so I'm sure if I'd been a famous teenage actor or writer or musician or director, I probably would have lavished myself with the greatest feelings in the world. But but now I try to joke to myself the difference between if I won an Oscar when I was 20 or if I won it when I was 50. you know?
Mm.
And I feel like when I get to 50, if I won an Oscar, I'd be like, thanks. You know, I wouldn't be crying and screaming and, oh, this is such an honor, and, you know, this kind of stuff. And I'd
Thank
probably
you to my
explain,
mom. Thank you to my dad.
I would have
Yeah.
been like James Cameron in Titanic. I'm king of the world, you know, when I was 20 something. But now,
Yeah.
you know, I think you realize these things are not the things that make life important or valuable in time. You realize, you know, there are other things that you can do to feel achieved and contribute and provide that are equally as, and in some ways more important in the long run. And I think for the people who are interested in a long career in this business, you know, it's being able to diversify your skills and remember it's not all about you all the time. Be compassionate, be caring, be nice. It doesn't matter. You know, often you'll see people who are terrible people become successful, often, right? It doesn't mean you have to be terrible to be successful, you know?
Okay. Thank you for
Like
clarifying.
yeah, well,
But yeah.
it's kind of, well, I think it's a bit like smoking, you know, it's like people when they're young, they see cool people smoke and they think it makes them cool, but it's not cool people it's not cigarettes that make people cool. It's cool people who smoke that make cigarettes look cool, you
Yeah.
know? So if you smoke, it doesn't make you cool. You know what I mean?
No.
Like that's not inherently on its own. Sometimes cool people smoke and you go, that looks cool, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, so it's the same thing, right? I mean, you can't assume that because people behave a certain way that that's why they become successful, you know?
Yeah.
And I can tell you in the long term, a reputation in this industry is all you really have that can keep you working in the future. That's all that matters, is what's your reputation? How have you behaved? How have you achieved the work? How, you know, how consistent, you know, I mean, that's the thing that when I do TV shows, and maybe it's the theater training, I come in, I'm prepared, I do my work, I go back to my trailer, I don't cause problems, I'm not late, I don't forget my lines. If I make a mistake, I say, sorry, can we go back a second quick? We do it again. You know, it's not that big a deal. I stay focused. Yeah. I try to contribute. If another actor is working and the camera's on them, I try to still give them a really strong performance from my side so that their performance can be good, you know, even if it tires me out. You know, this last movie that I shot, this one I was telling you about, there was a scene where I'm in jail and I'm really upset. I'm crying and I'm upset. And, you know, they did all my stuff and I was drained, but then they did my other scene partner and I still gave her, you know, and the director kept saying, you don't have to go all out. I said, I'm not going all out, but I'm going to give her something. Yeah. You know, and I think you'll find in time when you start to give more outward, you will become more successful, first of all. And second of all, you'll feel more achieved and you'll feel better about it, you know, and we spend we spend so much of our teens and 20s very selfish and self-absorbed and self-involved. And I think that's important and critical to explore who the hell you are, right? And how are you really going to behave as a person, right? And then once you understand that and you're out of your 20s and into your 30s, you start to think about how can I really do what I want to do? And then you start to really take that middle of the 30s and into the 40s and actually really try to tackle what it is you want to do. And hopefully you find peace with that and you find a joy in that and a comfort, and you don't feel all the time as down as you can get in this business, right?
Like, how do you feel about, you know, like, let's say like my boyfriend, he's really artistic and like he's really into cinema and he wants to learn more about it, but he's 36 years old now. He's been working for the Royal Mint for like 10 years, and he's like, okay, well, what, like, how can he start, you know, using that creativity? And like he kind of feels like he's looking for this thing in life that's like, why am I here? You know what I mean? Like, have you ever been in that type of position where you were like, am I really meant to be doing this? Like how did you get out of it?
No, I've never felt that. Truthfully, I've always known this is what I have to do.
Okay.
In that way. Now that doesn't mean I didn't struggle with how.
Okay.
You know, I struggled horribly with how for a long time, and in what
Yeah.
way. And you know, I think we said earlier before we came live, it's kind of a negotiation
Yes.
with fate, and
Mhm.
trying to negotiate between what are you willing to shift your approach to,
Yeah.
and what are you not willing to let go of, you know.
Yeah.
And look, I think, look, I tried it. I think I tried it a few times. I've been fired from every job that wasn't in my business. I don't last very long, you know, so I'm not
Yeah.
very good at the other stuff. I've tried it.
Yeah.
I have, you know, and I just don't last. I don't think my who I am is like that. Yeah, I've always known this is where I belong.
Yeah.
Sometimes I didn't know. I mean, my faith in myself has never changed. My faith in others and
Yeah.
other people recognizing what
Mhm.
I believed in myself, that was the struggle, was trying
Yeah.
to, at first trying to convince other people, and then I just kind of just decided to do it myself, and
Yeah.
and really just control my own career. I was tired of waiting for other people to give me the opportunities as much as I tried, you know, and sometimes I got things, sometimes I didn't, but they never lasted, you know, especially like you get a movie, it's great. You're 2, 3 weeks on set, maybe a month, maybe 2 months. If you're lucky, you know, on and
Mhm.
off for a few days. If you're in a theater contract, you get, you know, 6, 8, 12, 20 weeks, maybe, if you're lucky and you get into something like
Yeah.
Stratford or Shaw that has a whole, you know, 8, 9 month system. Um, but it still ends. It still ends.
Yeah.
And then you're back to where you were right before, which is,
Yeah.
you know, waiting tables and all the other kind of shitty jobs. Right. And
Yeah.
so I think the answer to the question you asked for your boyfriend is very simple.
Mhm.
Just make a movie. Like,
Yeah.
don't stop talking about it. Stop waiting for someone to give you the idea how to do it. Pick up this thing, which now shoots in a this now these things now shoot quality. You know,
Yeah. He's just
go
got a new
go
one at like 4K and everything. Like, I'm like, oh my
yeah,
God.
go. That's it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's what you need. You need a camera. If you go right now on Amazon, you can get a sound and light package for nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. You
That's
know,
true.
like really, you could spend when I was your age, you know, we were
Yeah.
shooting on 16 and 35 just to print
Yeah.
those things cost thousands of dollars. You
Yeah.
know,
It was
nowadays for like
expensive.
$500, you can have your own studio. You know,
Mhm.
get a couple green screens, get a couple locations, get some friends with some talent, and
Yeah.
play around. Editing
He said
systems are
the
cheap.
movies with his cousins actually, but I don't think they've ever thought about broadcasting those movies. I think they were more like experimenting on things more than anything
Okay,
else.
so once they
Yeah.
feel that they've done something exciting or special, or that they feel that they
Mhm.
can share, then they'll share it. Like we talked
Yeah.
about, you know, there's places like Film Freeway where you can just upload your movie, and
Yeah.
there are 3 or 4 thousand festivals around the world. And once you weed through the ones that are BS and the ones that are real, and you start to
Yeah.
get to them, you start applying. And maybe they, like we talked before, maybe sometimes it takes 3, 4 years and they're not interested in your stuff. But
Yeah.
once you build a bit of a relationship, then they go, well, let's look at this one. And then by then you're
Mhm.
making a decent movie. We made one movie, we won some awards. And I mean, it wasn't the greatest movie of all time.
Yeah.
We shot it in one day, you know,
Yeah.
it's a 17-minute film. We shot in a day, you know,
Haven't
asking
you
all the
sent me
favors.
pictures of that one? I think you sent me pictures of that movie.
Maybe,
Yeah.
but you could probably find it on my website on
Yeah.
my Bound to Create website.
Yeah.
But there's probably some images in that section under film. But yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
and it's great. I want to do more of that. You know, I think for me right now, I'm an artistic director of a major theater in the country, and that's amazing. That was kind of the dream for a long time. But what do I do after this? You know,
Yeah.
for now, I'm
Yeah.
not going to think about it too much because I can actually settle into this job and enjoy it. And I want to enjoy it for some time. You know,
Mhm.
if I can be here for 10 years, that'd be incredible. Right.
Yeah.
But after that, I'm going to have to do something else. Right. Because artistic directors need to switch. And so then I'm
Yeah.
back to what? Do I go back to
Mhm.
Toronto and work at TFS? Do I find other, you know what I mean? Like where I don't want to
No,
move
but
back.
we were talking about it earlier, but we weren't online. Like, how was your experience in teaching students? Like, is it
It's
something?
great. I mean, you only realize you know something about something when you can actually teach it to people, right? And the more you teach it, the more you kind of put it in yourself. And I always love the energy and the brashness of young people. They all think they're going to be
Yeah.
huge stars. They all think that everyone else in the room is not going to make up what they are,
Yeah.
and there's something about that arrogance in that energy. And also in some cases, not all, but in a lot of cases, we'll try anything, let's do anything, let's go, and there's something really inspiring when you're working with students like that.
Do you learn do you
And I mean,
learn things for your roles?
oh yeah. Oh yeah. You learn things as an actor, you learn things as a director. I mean, remember, most of what I did at TFS was directing the 5-term students in the final
Yeah.
play. So I was
Yeah.
basically just directing plays, and I could explore. It's funny you bring this question up, because I just had this conversation with the director who's directing the show right now at my theater. And we're very old friends. I've known her a long time, and I love her dearly. She's like a sister. And she came to me and talked about how she was frustrated. She didn't know the answer to some questions. And I said, well, you don't have to know everything. Right. And she said, what? And I remember when I learned that was when I was assisting Morris Panich at Soul Pepper, and somebody asked a question and he said, I don't know. And I went, what? How does the director has to know everything? What are you talking about? Oh, you don't know. But it's okay not to know everything. It's okay. And I only gave myself permission to explore that while I was at TFS. I used to really be very controlling of how things were done on the stage. And I would always storyboard all the staging, all the blocking, everything. I would always have it ready. So on the second day, I would tell people where they're going. And I decided during one of the shows at TFS, I'm like, I'm not going to prepare. I'm going to come in and I'm just going to see what happens. And it was terrifying because I didn't want to fall behind. But it was great. It was a way to release myself of being able to know everything. And so for me, I come from indie theater. I come from fringe and independent theater. And now I'm in the big theater game, and that's great, and have been for a little while. But I always hold in my heart who that guy was that had edge, that fought, right? That understands various little details around this business that some people don't, from having to scrape and claw. And I have a deep respect for that, and that what people do in this industry and how hard we work, so I would just say, you just make the movie, man. Like, don't talk about it anymore. Don't think about it anymore. Just make a movie. And if you don't, then you're not meant to make movies. There's the answer. Very simple. If you're going to keep talking about making movies, then you're not making movies. So there you go. There's the answer to your boyfriend's question. He wants to be a filmmaker, right? Don't wait. There's never going to be the right time. There's never going to be the right opportunity. You just have to step in and make that happen. And you don't have to start big. There are 5 and 10-minute film festivals around the world. And if you have good friends and resources, you don't need to spend a lot of money to make something like that. It cost us, I think, $2,500 to make our 17-minute film. We asked a lot of favors of people, but what would a 5-minute movie would have cost us? I don't know, $500, $600. I don't know. Wasn't that?
I mean, there's always ways to make movies with cheaper budget too. There's as long as you've got a house and like a location and people around to help you, like, you can make movies.
Just remember, when you watch your favorite TV shows and your favorite movies, look who's producing the movie. Often it's the actors that are in the lead, because even famous people have to get their movies by themselves. They have to. Charlize Theron was the executive producer of Monster. Nobody wanted to make that movie, and nobody was going to pay for it. So she had to go get the money herself. And she won an Oscar for the effort of not, she should have won it for producing as much as, for her to have to do what she did. But that just tells you, if somebody super famous can't get someone to make their movie without them, who are you? Like, you think you're going to suddenly get $1 million out of nowhere? No. Right. So make your movie, send it to festivals. Maybe someone notices, maybe somebody approaches you with an idea. Maybe you start working on a project together. You know what I mean? But that's the only way to do it, is just to do it. If you feel it's good enough, put it out in the world, and then do another one and do another one, and learn how to make them, learn how to make bad ones, learn how to make ones that aren't politically correct or aren't good, so you learn lessons, step over lines, don't be careful. Do things, make mistakes, and learn how to do them better, right?
Yeah.
A very
I think
famous
that's
poem.
important. I think we always forget that, you know, we're all human and we all need to learn that mistakes are okay.
Yeah,
And like I think I even myself forget about that. And I think that stops me from doing a lot of things in this industry, is that I get afraid a lot.
but that's okay, right? I mean,
Yeah,
if you're afraid, you care.
yeah,
If you're not afraid, if nothing bothers you, if you don't get nervous around something, that's when I'd start to worry, right?
yeah.
You just learn in time how to turn that fear into something that can inspire you and give you
Mhm.
focus. Turn the fear into focus, and
Yeah,
use it as an adrenaline. You think about sports athletes, like before a game they get really intensely adrenalized, right? But for them, they can use it to come out of the start of the game really strong, you know
yeah,
and I think that's eventually what you have to do. Is it's really important to utilize that nervous energy to inspire. You always find that rehearsals are always very good and the actors are good, but when an audience comes in, the actors take it up another level. It's something
yeah.
you can't do. I can't
It's the
do
adrenaline.
when I'm yeah, but that adrenaline is what you think of as nerves and fear. That's what that
Yeah.
is. And so you just make it work for you instead of against you.
Mhm.
That's the only difference. It's not like you can make it go away. And like I said, you don't want it to go away because then you don't care, I
Yeah,
think, you know.
that's true.
Um, but I think if you can put it towards doing what you do, then it's great. And when you can relax into it and really enjoy that,
Yeah.
that's when it really goes up another level.
You know what? That's like every time I have a podcast so far, I've like had this like moment before where I'm like, oh my God, like what do I do? Am I canceling everything? Just like stopping everything? Or like do I go into it and then I rewatch it after and I'm gonna just be the person who enjoys it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Like I get
exactly.
this adrenaline of like, okay, I'm going into this right now. Like it's starting and I don't know what I'm doing, you know? And that's why I like just learning from people, because it's like I don't really have to know what to do. I can make mistakes because I'm just here to learn. I'm here to learn from you. I'm here to learn from every guest that I have, right? So
Yeah. Well, and the same
that's
thing,
my
well, it's the same thing. I hope that I can always try to still learn. I get frustrated,
yeah.
I mean, I always wanted to be the worst actor in every play I was in, instead of the best,
Yeah.
and a lot of the time I was the best one in the company, and then I just had nothing to try to fight for, right? I was like, oh, okay.
Mhm.
So then I ended up just helping other people. But on the odd occasion, I would get on a stage or start to rehearse and see somebody like, oh my God, they're really good. It would
Yeah.
make me, I'd suddenly game up too. And I'd be like, okay, and that to me is the greatest thing in the world. Like I don't think I'm the greatest actor or director or whatever in the world at all, not
Mhm.
in any way, but I know I'm good at what I do. I know I do
Yeah.
it well. I know I'm in a place now where I can actually say that and be comfortable saying that. I don't do a lot of things really well, but I do a few things
Yeah.
really well.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think that that's a good place to try to come from, and in that way, I'm okay to forgive myself when I don't know something. And I'm
Mhm.
excited when I'm inspired by people who challenge and excite me. The biggest thing that came to me from being an indie theater artist is that I started to really enjoy obstacles, things where I couldn't do something because I didn't have money, or a theater didn't want me to do something, or like I had a show where I had to spill blood on the stage and the theater said you're not allowed to do that. And I said, well,
Yeah.
that's a huge part of the play. So I turned the blood into red sand and newspapers called me a genius, and
Yeah.
really it's not, there
Hard.
was no genius there, as much as it was nice to hear. At the end of the day, it
But
was
it's creative.
it's well, sure, but it was out of
Mhm.
necessity. It was
Yeah.
out of a challenge that I wasn't allowed to use something. It wasn't an idea that I would have originally come up with. So
Yeah.
for me, obstacles and challenges, I mean, same with an actor. When you're an actor and you're learning a role and you're trying to find a way to embody this role, the first thing not the first, but one of the first things you're looking for are the obstacles that the person is challenged with. you know,
Yeah.
because what audiences want to see are stories about people who are overcoming obstacles, right? And as an actor, to dig in, you want to find out what that obstacle is, because then you know what to choose. When we talked about choose, then you know what choice to make in that regard. You know, it's like if I said to you, okay, you just broke up with your boyfriend. You said, I hate you. You left the house, and you realize you left something there that was really important to you, but now you feel like stupid. Like, how can you go back and get it? You want to just leave, and you have to call your boyfriend. And the first scene, the first line is you on the phone, and you say hello, right? Well, you know that you have to overcome almost yourself and your boyfriend to get this thing back. Let's say it's a shirt that you love, right?
Yeah.
So you know right away when you figure out what the problem is and you know the story, are you going to start the call by going, hello, and be mean? Because is that going to get you your shirt? You know what I mean? No. So right away, you know your choice now has to be, well, a little bit contrite, right? Hello, you know, right? Or hi. Like, you know that you can't, you just told the person to go to hell. You broke up with them, you left. If you call angrily, they're going to hang up the phone. So logic, you know, it's not hard to say that I know how I'm going to say hello in this scene. There may be a few ways to do it, right? I can be like, hello, or hi, right? Or depending if it's really comedy,
like you want something, but like, you know, something bad. You
I want something, but I just called you an asshole, and now I got to talk to you again, and there it is. There it is. Right? So you know that. So that's the thing about acting, right? That was really good. That was a good take. You should look at that. Watch that again. Right?
I'll put it in my demo reel.
But that's because of your understanding of the obstacles in your way and the story behind it. So you know how to do that. You know, there are a lot of actors who don't know how to read a script and don't know how to find these things. So they just say something. Hello, hi, hello. Like they just throw a version. But you actually had a detailed version because you knew the story and you knew the obstacles, and the obstacles inspired the response. And that I thrive for those things. If somebody says to me, you can't do something, that's when I get really excited. Right. And I go, oh, really? All right, let's see. Let's see. You know, let's see, you know? So for me, that's what you should strive for, is always tackling obstacles, right? And if you feel satisfied with that battle and the result of it, then you know you're in the right field, you're in the right area. If it bores you, if it upsets you, if you feel like you fail every time and you can't seem to get any pleasure out of it, maybe it's not for you, you know? Maybe it's not for you.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to say that as a downer, you know?
No. But it is important to understand that, you know, like I'm taking it as like, you know, when you know, and you know if it's good for you or if it's not. And that should be enough for you to say, yes, I'm doing it, or no, I'm not.
I think you have to follow the path. You know, I've tried to steer the hand of God myself in my career and make it all happen. And even with talent and look and ability and know-how and passion and training, and I'm very good at connecting to people. Like, I don't have issues, you know, meeting people and making contacts and building relationships. Even with all of those things, if it's not right for you in that moment, it's just not going to happen, right? It has to be the right moment that happens to fall. You can make those moments more likely for yourself by giving yourself opportunities, right? By being prepared for opportunity. But you never really know, you know, it's sometimes that just doesn't happen the way you thought it would. In the way you thought it would. And you can look back and regret, oh, maybe I should have moved to LA, or maybe when I went to New York, I should have just stayed there. Maybe I should have done this. Maybe, you know, I mean, you can do that, but you never know for sure if those things would have done anything anyway, you know? And so you follow the path you're on and you negotiate with destiny. And you decide, what are you willing to say, okay, I can move on from that? And what are you willing to say, no, this is not going to change in me. I'm going to stay this. How does that affect you moving forward? So I think that's where it's at.
That gave me a lot to think about. But yeah,
Well, that's good.
when I moved to Toronto, it was like a leap of fate of like, okay, well, I'm going into this new adventure. You know, like when COVID hit, I started my YouTube channel, and I was just vlogging.
Right.
I was just vlogging. That's all I was doing. And and then when I went to Toronto Film School, I started making videos and stuff, and I met amazing people, and I've learned a lot from them. Each of them something different, but
Mm-hmm.
still. And um, and then I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to give a platform to people who don't have a voice
Mm.
and who don't feel like they can make it. And so like or people that do have a voice but they need a platform to share it, right? So I've created this channel because of that, and that's where I feel comfortable. That's where I feel like I can share things with other people, and that's to the core. That's what I've wanted to do all from the beginning, is just sharing with people amazing stories and amazing um, ideas that are just different.
Yeah, that's great. But that's
Yeah.
it, right? And think about it. You didn't know 10 years ago that it would take a pandemic to do that, right? You didn't know it was
No.
coming.
Yeah.
So that's a really good example of just following a path, right? Like
Yeah.
you couldn't have it 10 or 12 years old said to yourself, one day there'll be a great pandemic and I'll become a great vlogger. Like
Yeah.
you can't plan that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
No, definitely
It's
not.
it happened. You tried something, you realize, oh, you
Yeah.
know what, this is fulfilling, this is exciting, and
Yeah.
that's where you land. And who knows, down the road you might be monetizing this for millions of dollars, and it's
Well,
it's
who
it's a thing,
knows?
right?
Yeah. Well, I'm right now I'm just aiming to um little goals because I don't want to disappoint myself. So I'm just like I'm doing this because I enjoy it and I'm gaining something from it and I'm learning and I'm getting better at it. And I can see the difference from my first podcast to this one. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah,
just
it's
you
great.
learn little details that makes you better at it, and it's just yeah,
Yeah,
it's an
well,
adventure.
that's incredible. I mean,
Yeah,
that's the point. That's the
yeah,
whole point of this conversation, is what we're talking about, right?
yeah,
It's opportunity, and going down the path. That's really
yeah,
what it has to be. And it's important that you try your best, especially if you are determined to do something in this kind of business,
yeah,
and this kind of field, whatever it is. It's
yeah,
important that you give yourself the space to prepare and accomplish the goals. And if you're meant for it, you'll keep doing it. And if you move on to something else, I know a lot of actors who became lawyers and are some of the best people to fight. You don't want to fight them in court because they know how to put on a show,
yeah,
and so
yeah.
does that mean they failed as an actor? Not at all. What does that
No,
even mean? Failed as an actor? I don't know. I lived for 30 years as an actor.
but
I've not.
I still feel like acting can give you a push into being um great in that job because you learn how to talk to people, you learn how to
That's
share
everything.
emotion,
Yeah.
and like when you talk in court, you have to be able to connect with people around you to make
Acting
it
is
seem.
just about acting is simply about communicating
Yeah,
ideas and thoughts and emotions and wisdom and words, and your ability to communicate that to your audience in whatever
yeah,
thing you do, whether you're the singer in a band, or a guitar player, or
yeah,
a painter, or an actor, or a writer. However you decide to transmute that art form to your audience, your ability to do that will be what inspires you to continue in that way or try another way,
mhm,
until you find that you are receiving in return what you're putting in. It's like a
yeah,
relationship.
yeah,
I spent a lot of my relationships giving more than I got back, and
yeah,
I finally found someone who maybe gives me more, than I give back. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And
Yeah,
for me,
how was
that
that for you? How was like I know I asked you a few questions before we went live, but like how was like I know your wife is an actor, so I know it might be easier for you to um not easier, but in a way easier to be in a relationship because she understands part of like what you're doing and
oh yeah.
the time consuming um spent doing what you're doing. So, but how did it create? like any issues for you in your life to find a partner? Like, how was it for you?
Well, I mean, the only issue was that we both were broke all the time. That's all.
Yeah.
We didn't have any money. So it's
Yeah.
like, I have some friends that marry doctors and therapists and lawyers and engineers, and they don't have to work other jobs or worry
Yeah.
too much because their partner takes care of them. So that was the
Yeah.
only issue. But in terms of the work itself, there was never a moment where either of us weren't 100% supportive. We ran a company for almost 20 years. We worked, lived together all the time, and we still
That's
do.
good.
And it's totally fine. Like we have a very similar mind to the work and how we like the work. You'll notice that in this business, couples are very even balanced. You'll
Yeah.
find that like they're both kind of the same when it comes to the way they do their work,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I know I couldn't be with someone who wasn't as inspired as I am. I couldn't be with someone
Yeah.
who wasn't as talented as I think I am. I
Yeah.
needed. I remember once I dated an actor and I went to see her in a play and she was terrible, and I went, okay, well, this isn't going to work, and that was it. I just couldn't, because I
Yeah.
couldn't respect the level of artistry that she did, and I knew that in time would affect us, and
Yeah.
in this case, Lauren always inspires me and excites me, and we've built each other's career up through the years. We've made each other as successful
Yeah.
as we both are. No one else did it for us. We did it, and we're
Yeah.
very proud of that. We're not good at kissing ass and sucking up to people. We're not good at assimilating because of this is the way people should behave. We're just not. That's not who
Yeah.
we are. That's not how we're built. We just want to make
Mhm.
fucking great art, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's the story of the art, sometimes it's the presentation of the art, sometimes it's the stylization of the art, but in any way we
Mhm.
aim to make high quality work that would make people excited even if they didn't like theater, or if they love
Mhm.
TV and don't believe in theater, or who think, oh, theater is like it's all just intellectual heady stuff, and a lot of it is,
Yeah.
but that's not the kind of stuff we do. Our stuff is very smart, it's very articulate and very well done, but
Yeah.
we give it to our audiences as gifts. We want them to have an experience that they can go
Yeah.
home and talk about. That, I'm not saying we're going to change the world and, we change everyone's lives, but,
Yeah.
if we can give you something that can take you into something or away from something for a little while, and you come
Mhm.
back open and clean and fresh and new in some ways, and then that's all that matters. Or you connect in a way, then that's what
Yeah.
really matters.
I think art is all about connecting.
Yeah, yeah. And so
All
Lauren and
about
I,
sharing.
it's always
Yeah.
been good. It's always been good. There's never been issue. Now I would say the only issue is that because of the way my work goes in artistic leader, I've had to move a lot. So I keep moving her to different environments.
Yes.
And that's been challenging for her, right?
Yeah.
Because she's well known enough around the country. It isn't like she's starting at the bottom of the pile, but
Yeah.
she kind of has to reintroduce herself to another community, you know?
Yeah.
And she's excellent at it. We've done it a bunch, but I know that is an extra effort that if we stayed in Toronto may not have been the case. If we stayed in BC might have not been the case. If we stayed, or we toured our shows around the world, like we've done all kinds of exciting things.
Yeah.
So that I think would probably be a bit of a challenge that she has had to face because she's moved, but I promised her this time we'll stay for a while. So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, at
But
least
yeah.
for a bit, but I still try to make sure she feels fulfilled. It's important for me for her to feel
Yeah.
fulfilled. The last thing I want her to be is like, a wife of a guy, like
Yeah.
I'm more her husband. She's a superstar, and it's
You
like,
want her to have her own identity, basically.
oh my God, if she became the most famous person in the world, I'd be thrilled for her. I know there are people
Yeah.
that get upset when their partners get more than they do, but I would have no resentment if she became the most famous human on earth. I'd be thrilled for her. She deserves nothing less and works extremely hard and is a very talented and beautiful and incredible human being. And so
Yeah.
for her, any success is a great success. But when it comes to us, like we're good.
Yeah.
This business hasn't torn us apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've gotten into arguments over money, and you get nervous, and that stuff happens. But
Yeah.
it's not something we've never, knock on wood, we haven't dealt with something that would tear us apart as people.
Yeah.
We've gone through illness, we've gone through death, we've gone through many things in this relationship over the years, and we've been together over 20 years now. right? And we've worked together most of that time.
Yeah,
So
I remember when I first met you in class, I think you mentioned something like that you've been with your wife for a really long time. And I was like, wow, that's like my dream goal. Like,
yeah, I think you
like,
need,
find
listen, you
some-
need, it's important to find your support system, whatever that may
yeah,
be. It doesn't
yeah,
have to be, I mean, that can be a friend, that can be a dog, that can be a parent, that can be a sister, that can be a cousin, that can be a wife, husband, partner, whatever, right?
yeah,
It's just really important that you do find somebody you can lean on when you need it, someone who can help you or
mhm,
take care of you when you can't,
yeah,
and someone that you can do the same for and you want to.
yeah,
Those moments. And Lauren and I were together for 10 years, working very hard in the industry,
mhm,
before we had Ethan. It was only after 10 years that we went, okay, we can add to this, and we brought him into the story, right? But
aw,
we weren't super young, so we
yeah,
actually, by the time he was born, we were kind of in the midst of our career, and we were okay, and we were happy. We wanted more, we wanted to achieve more, we still do, um,
yeah,
but we didn't feel like we had to give up everything too early and lose opportunity early in our career by doing it.
yeah,
We did it at the right time, I think. And now that he's 10, especially, he's old enough. He's been old enough for a few years, but he's old enough now, where both of us can go do something like I'm directing Lauren in a show in February, March, that goes
okay,
at the theater. It's a Canadian premiere of the adaptation of The Girl on the Train, um,
yes,
which is
yes,
a famous Paula Hawkins book, and it was
yeah,
adapted by Rachel Wagstaff and Duncan Abel. And it's
yeah,
a really exciting piece, but it's the first time we've been able to work together since we did our Hedda Noir in 2017.
yeah.
So it's been a long time, you know.
Yeah, that's cool. I wish
And
I
we've
could
done,
like later
yeah, and
on
I'm
work
excited. I'm
with
excited
them.
because we've worked together, 12, 15 times on plays where I directed her,
Yeah.
and so this is just going to go back to like riding a bicycle. We haven't, ridden in a while, but I
Mhm.
know her brain so well. She knows me so well. We can work so quickly when we don't have to say
Yeah.
very much.
Yeah.
And so we're excited because every time I feel that we do the work together, it's very special. I always
Yeah.
feel that, like, I like to think the work I do is special, and she does work that's special on her own, and it is. But when we come
Mhm.
together, there's just an extra layer that we love sharing, and I think that comes from the
Yeah.
passion that we share for each other and for the work that really
Yeah.
you can feel it in the productions we create. And so, that'll be another opportunity for us to work together. And yeah, I mean, I have such a great respect for her as an artist that it makes it easy. And I don't feel like, oh, I'm just hiring my wife. And, it's like, no,
Yeah.
once she presents herself in this community and they see her ability, she'll be one of the company and one of the team, and that's it. Right. And
Mhm.
one of the community members it's great to have here. And we feel very fortunate to be here. We love it here. And so it's, as much as we miss all our colleagues and friends from the places we've lived and worked, this is another opportunity to contribute and help a community in continuing to grow in its arts and theater. And
Yeah.
it's kind of the dream right now, is to
It
be
is.
be an arts leader in a community where you can
Yeah.
support and contribute to the growth of a community. I mean, what could be better than that? It's very fulfilling, and I do, for the first time in my life, feel a real sense of achievement, and it makes me really happy. And I feel like I can stop crushing the gas pedal down to the ground and not necessarily take my foot off the gas, but at least loosen up and not have to feel like I have to speed to some big ending that may or may not happen. So it's
Yeah.
it's an exciting place to be.
Oh, I'm glad. Well, I'm really glad that you joined me today for this podcast, and
Thank you, Kathy.
I'm really happy to have been able to talk to you again. And we'll talk after still. But just to end the live, um, like, thank you for coming on with
Absolutely.
me
Thank you for
for
having
this.
me. And it
And
was great chatting.
yeah, and thank you for teaching me and everybody that's gonna watch it, like, um, all these good, like, sometimes you need to be told those things,
Well,
and there's
and
that's gonna see it clearly.
yeah,
Yeah,
and listen and don't listen as it helps. You know what I mean? Like, it's all from my experience. I don't know everything. This is
yeah,
the experience I've had and the beliefs I've built over, like almost 40-year kind of career in it, right? And so for me, this is how I see the world, and some people may agree and some people may not, and that's totally fine. But if it provides anything for anyone, then that's great. But really, I was kind of just talking about, how I see the world and how I think things
that's perfect.
work. And
that's
so thank you for letting me do that. That's great.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for coming on. All right, everybody. So goodbye for today, and I'll see you next weekend.